Hello everyone, welcome to this Age of Alchemy battle report, where today we are actually going to be doing a secure ground scenario, and both of us are going to be playing as the followers of Nature's Bounty. Now this one's sort of having a bit of a break from doing the campaign, so we can work out all the groups where they stand and see how we want to do the next few games. Also, we've got a couple of things on over the next few weeks and things, so we're just trying to get some games out to everyone, make sure that we don't have a gap in the games, but we're just going to do something a little bit different, a little bit more light-hearted this time. So that's the introduction. So let me just show you the two groups that we're going to be playing today. For the followers of Nature's Bounty that are we playing, we have an Alchemist with a sword, or with a basic weapon, an ex-soldier with a great weapon, a noble with two basic weapons, Marksperson with crossbow and dagger, Marksperson with crossbow and basic weapon, and finally a favoured pet. As for my opponent, they will be taking this Alchemist with a spear, Skirmisher with throwing daggers and a basic weapon, two Barbarians with great weapons, and two Markspersons with bow and basic weapon. First of all, I'm going to roll for my concoctions. So we've got two of the crumble, two entangle, and we actually have two of the bounty of life. Now I'm going to quickly switch out one each of these ones, and I'm going to meld them so that I get myself a 4, which is a Call of the Wild. Now for my opponent, they're going to roll their concoctions. So first of all, they rolled a number 3, which is one they get to choose. So they can choose which concoction they would like with that. There's a crumble, which is a number 1. Number 2, which is entangle. Number 4, which is Call of the Wild. 5, which is bounty of life. And 6, which is rain wizard. So with that, my opponent chose to bring up another Call of the Wild, and then has melded two of their concoctions to a crumble. As we can see, that is both players now deployed, with my opponent on their side going for their Alchemist, Marksperson, Barbarian, Marksperson, and then Skirmisher and Barbarian on this side. As for me, we have the ex-soldier and Marksperson over here, the Alchemist and favoured pet here, and then the noble and Marksperson on this side. So we are going to head into turn 1. Start of turn 1 with the first initiative roll. 3 for my opponent, 4 for me, so I'll go first, and they'll get a reaction token. As I was about to move this Marksperson over here, my opponent's corresponding Marksperson over here is going to take a shot at them with a snapshot. They will need a 4 to hit, however, because it is long range, which they do, rolling to wound, which they also do. So I take a wound, and then I will move them up to there. That is us at the end of turn 1's movement phase. As we can see, my models have sort of pretty much pushed right up at the front. My opponent's done the same, except for their Marksperson over there who reacted. First bit of shooting from my side. This crossbowman is going to go into this Marksperson who reacted. However, because of the angle of looking up past the break in the building, he is actually pretty much in clear line of sight. However, my crossbowman did move. He is with an 18, so it's only going to be a 5 to hit here. Reroll for being a Marksperson. And that's a hit. Damage 4, resistance 3. It is a wound. Bit of a bounce around there, but it does get a wound. Like so. Next, my other Marksperson with a crossbow can fire a shot straight over at my opponent's Alchemist, and I can see them in the open. We are looking at a 5 to hit there as well, because they're within 18, but I did move, so I'm going to roll a 3. Nope, that's a miss. My Alchemist is going to use Call of the Wild, and it's going to go on this Skirmisher here. So 2 attacks, or 2 dice. No wounds, and then the Skirmisher makes a 2-inch disengage move. So my opponent can move him forward or backward. I'm going to move him out to there. Okay. For my opponent shooting, this Marksperson here is going into my ex-soldier. Will need a 6 though, because it's long range, cover, and they've moved. They hit, rolling 5 or 6 to wound. They do wound as well. It's only a single wound because of my resistance. which I also ignore on a 6. That is weird. Next, my opponent's reacted marksperson up here is going to go into my noble, so also needing a 6. Again, rolls a 6, 5 or 6 to wound. Gets a 1, so no wound. My opponent, their alchemist, is going to use Call of the Wild on my noble for their last bit of shooting. 2 dice, looking for 5s and 6s. Ooh, they get a wound. And then I have to move back as though I'd been attacked in combat. Like so. With that, we actually come to the end of turn 1. There is no combat because nobody's close enough yet. So we're going to finish up on turn 1 and head into turn 2. Initiative for turn 2. Oh, okay, it's once again, I'm going first. My opponent's going second with a reaction token. End of turn 2 movement. My marksperson has stayed still. Noble has moved up round this way. Alchemist and favoured pet have gone over there. This marksperson has stayed still, and my ex-soldier has dived into that building. As for my opponent, the Barbarian and Skirmisher come round on this side. Marksperson moving up over here. This one has shuffled over to the other side of the building. This Barbarian is hidden behind here. And finally the Alchemist is over here on the rooftop still. First bit of shooting. Marksperson into Marksperson. Looking for a 4 to hit. It's a hit. Looking for damage 4, resistance 3. Ooh, that goes up to a 6 because the +1 and makes it a critical. So my opponent is on 2 wounds. Did this a little bit backwards, but instead my Alchemist is going to go now, and he's going to crumble this piece of scenery. There is a model touching it, so on a 3+, they will take a wound. They don't, but because it's only a small piece of scenery, it is removed from play. Next, my Marksperson is going to take a shot up at this Marksperson. They are still within 18, and this time they do get soft cover from that bridge. So we're looking at a 4 to hit them. That's a hit. Damage 4, resistance 3. So +1 to this. And it's a 3, so that goes up to a 4 and makes it a single wound. First shot from my opponent. This marksperson is going to fire at my favoured pet, needing a 6 because of the cover and they moved. No, it's a 4. My opponent is going to use Bounty of Life from the Alchemist to their Marksperson, and they're going to heal them back to full wounds. As for this Marksperson here, because of a combined number of bonuses depending on where they plan to shoot, they actually can't take a shot and hit any of my models because they require a 7 or more to hit, or they can't see them. So what we're going to do is go straight into the combat phase. First combat, for me, is like so, charging at the window. I get 1 attack, hitting on a 3. My opponent gets 1 attack, hitting on a 4. Okay, we're equally as bad. However, I was the one who charged, so it's my opponent who rolls the wrong way on a 4+, who fails. I get a hit. I get a 4, but because I'm damage 4 against resistance, damage 6 against resistance 4, that would go up to a 6. So my opponent would take 2 wounds and then try and back away, which they don't. So I get 1 attack, which doesn't hit. They get to run away, which they do. So they're going to back away like so. And I'm going to roll to see where I can go. A 2. I'm actually just going to stay at the window. For my opponent's first charge, because I'm actually all out of charges at this point, this Marksperson is going to run up and charge the Alchemist on the opposite side of the wall. They have 1 attack hitting on a 4. Okay, they miss. I have 1 attack back hitting on a 3, which hits. 50-50 because I'm damage 3 to their resistance 3. No, we'll count that, so I fall back. And yes, I do. I fall back 2 inches. So my opponent can either jump the fence after me, or actually, no, I don't think they can because the dog's there. So my opponent can roll to see what they get. A 6. So we will come back to you. Last charge for my opponent, particularly because it's compulsory more than anything else. This Barbarian is going to charge like so. 1 attack, hitting on a 4. It hits. Damage of 6, resistance 4, so looking at +2. My opponent gets a 6 there. So I'll take 2 wounds, or will I? I can ignore them on 6s. I don't ignore either. but I get my 1 attack back because we go at the same time, which hits. +2 to the roll. Ooh, that's an 8, so they're definitely gone. However, they do deal me 2 wounds in exchange. With that, we're actually at the end of turn 2. So as we can see, my opponent has only lost 1 model and I've lost none, so there'll be no determination rolls. But join us as we will go into turn 3. Start of turn 3, some reaction tests. Well, reaction test initiative. My opponent rolls a 6. I roll a 5, so for once it's the reverse. I'm going second with a reaction token. Now we have come to the end of movement here on turn 3. So my opponent is going to go into their shooting phase. So my opponent is going to use Call of the Wild from this Alchemist onto my... What is he? He is a noble. So my opponent's going to roll 2 dice and see what happens. Ooh, unfortunately they don't roll any 5 or 6s, but I do have to move a couple of inches back. So it's going to be like so. Next, my opponent's Marksperson is going to fire a shot hitting on a 5 into this guy because of the cover. No. So my opponent's Skirmisher is going to target my Marksperson up here. They will, originally it would be going down from 3s to 2s because they're short range, but back up to 4s because of the hard cover. So they're going to throw all the daggers in at once. 2 hit, so they could potentially remove me if they roll high enough. It is damage 3, resistance 3. They get a wound on me. And before anything else happens, I am near an edge, but I don't fall. Last bit for my opponent, Marksperson into Marksperson, needing a 6. First bit of shooting for myself, Marksperson into my opponent's Marksperson. I do actually have clear line of sight from here as well, which is good. Hitting on a 3. Hits, damage 4 against resistance 3. Oh, that's just enough because that will be a +1 to the damage, and that will give them their last wound. Next, crossbow, Marksperson into Alchemist, needing a, haven't moved, so need a 3 to hit because they're in the open. Getting a hit, rolling to wound. That is enough to cause a single wound because it's damage 4, resistance 3. My opponent's going to roll to see if they fall, which they do. However, the height of the fall is only 3 inches, so I'll have them roll. It's damage 3, resistance 3. So they don't take any wounds in falling, they just take a single wound from the crossbow bolt. Last but not least, it's a bit overkill, but Bounty of Life onto my noble. Start, or first combat, is going to be my opponent's Skirmisher. It's going to spin round, charge into my ex-soldier. They have 1 attack hitting on a 3. Ooh, unfortunately I have 1 attack hitting back on a 3, which hits. Damage 6, resistance 3. That goes up to a 6, so they take 2 wounds, but on a 2+. 3 plus 3.
Go on then.
So my opponent is now going to roll to back away. And they have. So they're going to move away, and I'm going to stay put. First charge from my side. Noble is going to charge into the wall that the Barbarian is on the other side of. They're not, because they failed their intelligence. So he's too stupid to go and charge the Barbarian. Last but not least, I am going to make this charge, like so. I have 1 attack hitting on a 3. Doesn't hit. My opponent has 1 attack hitting on a 3, which also doesn't hit, but they run away on a 2+, which they do, so my opponent's going to back away. And then I'm going to roll a 3, and I'm going to go back into here, because he could be forced to charge at the end of this combat phase. So I'm actually going to go like so. With that, we actually checked, and the Barbarian is just not able to make this charge over here. Speaking of, we are going to wrap up turn 3 and go into turn 4, where my opponent has to start making determination checks. For my opponent, they're going to roll their determination roll, see what they get. A 3, so that's fine. They've rolled equal to or above the number of models removed. Into the initiative phase. 2 for me, 4 for my opponent. So I'm going second with 2, count them, 2 reaction tokens. With that, we actually come to the end of the movement phase. My opponent didn't move the models I wanted them to so I could shoot at them, so I have ended up keeping some of my reaction tokens. But we will see how that goes as we head into shooting phase. There we go. My opponent, for the first shot, was actually going to go Marksperson to Marksperson, but I'm reacting. However, it's not to get away from that Marksperson, but it's to put some distance away from that Skirmisher. So I'm actually going to go right into the corner as far as I can, like so. So my opponent is still going to line up their shot, it's just so I can move them away from getting attacked by other models, but they still, in this case, will need a 6 due to range and cover. Reroll for Marksperson. Ooh, no. So my opponent is going to use their Skirmisher. Is actually going to throw knives at my Noble because they are just in range, but even with the heavy cover, they'll still get hits on 6s, so they're going to throw all their knives into them. And no hits. For my opponent's Alchemy, they're actually going to throw a crumble from this Alchemist into this building, which they can do because it's within 6 inches, and it can hurt, because he's the only one touching it, can hurt my Alchemist on a 3+. Which it does, so I take a wound, and the building shakes a little bit. Only bit of shooting for me, because there's not very much Alchemy or he's already reacted. So this Marksperson here into my opponent's Marksperson, needing a 4. They get a hit, roll into wound. They get a 6, which goes up to a 7 because of the damage to resistance, but it's still just 2 wounds. As we come into the combat phase, my opponent was going to charge with their Barbarian. Oops. But I am going to use my last reaction token, and I'm going to charge into them instead. So I get 2 attacks with a Noble, hitting on a 3. 1 hits, damage 4, resistance 4. So it is a wound on my opponent's Barbarian, but they get to attack back with 1 attack hitting on a 4, which doesn't, running away on a 4+. I'll let them roll that again, it's a bit... No, unfortunately they don't, so I get 2 free attacks, both of which hit. Neither of which wound, because he's resistant, same as me. He still doesn't back away. Neither of which hit. This is going to go on for a while. Nope. Nope. Double hit. A single wound. My opponent's still got a wound left. And they now back away. So they're going to back away like so. And then I'm going to roll a 1. Well, I'm going to stay there. So that brings us to the end of turn 4, as we're about to go into turn 5. So join us as we go into that turn and see what happens. Start of turn 5, first thing is Determination. So my opponent's going to roll. Gets a 2, which is enough. They only need to equal or beat. Turn 5 initiative phase, my opponent is going to roll a 2. I roll a 6. So I'll be going first, and they'll get 2 reaction tokens. With that, we come to the end of turn 5's movement phase, so we're just going to go into the shooting phase. So my Marksperson over here is about to shoot at the Barbarian, but my opponent is going to react, and they get 3 inches. So they've said they want to move them like so, I believe.
Next to there.
To there.
Mm-hmm.
So they can go to there. Still get a shot, but there's going to be hard cover in the way. So roll to see if I hit, which I do. Roll to see if I wound, damage 4, resistance 4, which I also do. So whether or not Barbarian has taken his last wound. Next bit of shooting, this Marksperson into my opponent's Marksperson. I haven't moved, but they are going to get cover from these here. Reroll for being a Marksperson into a hit. Damage 4, resistance 3, so +1 to this. No, I failed to wound. Last bit of shooting from me is going to be some Alchemy, and Entangle from here to here. Let's see if it goes off. No, it doesn't go off. First bit of shooting from my opponent's side is going to be Marksperson into Alchemist, which is definitely within 12 because I just used the Entangle. Hitting on a... Ooh, they've moved and I've got soft cover, so it actually would be a 5. For my opponent's last bit of shooting, Skirmisher into the dog. It's going to be hitting on 2s. They're going to throw all 3 knives into it. So all hit. They are, however, damage 3 to resistance 2 on the dog. So those would be 3 or more they're looking for.
Wow.
That is impressively bad. Okay, yeah, we will move on to the combat phase. First bit of the combat phase, I'm going to charge my favoured pet into the Skirmisher, who is going to react and charge me instead. Poor doggo. However, it does mean they get to attack first with one attack hitting on a 3. Hits, looking at damage 3, resistance 2.
Yay.
No wound. I attack back, hitting on a 4. And wounding, it's only damage 2, so looking for a 5 or 6. Ah, bad dog. And then 4+ to run away. He doesn't, so my opponent gets a free attack. Which hits. It does wound in this case. And I do back away. So I'll pop a wound on myself, and then I'll just back away into that corner. My opponent rolls a 1. The only other charge from me, blind charge into the Skirmisher, needing a 2 or more. I get it. I'm going to go down like so. And I have one attack hitting on a 4. Wounding on a 5 or 6 because I've only got a dagger. I can't see what that is. Oh no, it is a 5 and it's holding up the ladder. So my opponent gets the last wound on taken on the Skirmisher. I roll to see how far I go. 6. I'm going to go back exactly where I was. And with that, after a quick chat with my opponent, they actually have decided that they're going to concede. They currently have 2 models left on the board, one of which who's already heavily wounded, compared to me having not lost a single model, not to make too fine a point of it, but unfortunately that's what's happened. So in this case, even if I did have or didn't have the corners, my opponent is just going to hand the victory over to me. But we will come back to you with the post-game wrap-up. And with that, we come to the end of this battle report. I think it's going to be quite a short one, to be perfectly honest. As we can see there, my opponent had only 2 models to my 6 on the table, so it was just easier if we just called the game there. And that was it. Thank you very much for joining us for this short battle report. We will be looking at getting back into the campaign in a couple of weeks, but in the meantime, we actually are going to have a look at just doing a few more short ones while we've got busy weekends coming up ahead of us, and just see to make sure that we get some games and videos out to you. In terms of getting access to the rules, same as every other video, if you go to the Patreon link down below and join at the Scoundrel tier, you'll get extra videos. If you join at the Novice tier, you'll get the rules, which includes campaign, solo play, and a variety of other ways of playing the game. And if you join at the Local Hero tier, you'll get not only that, you'll also get your ability to name models who will be in our campaigns, you'll get sneak previews, and you will get quite a few other things as well. As time goes on, we will add in additional little benefits for the Local Hero tier. All that remains for me to say is thank you very much from me and from my opponent behind the camera, and we will see you next time.